Hmm. Hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, it's Ardith. Excellent. Hmm. And there's Mary and Janice and Darren.
Hiya. Hi, David.
Oh, hey, good to see. Oh, there's Kathy. Um, our celebrity's on the call today.
Oh, dear.
So we're going to see her smiling face in a few minutes.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. Every time we start one of these calls, I have this flashback to being children. I don't know if you had these kind of shows where you were, but we had a show called Romper Room for little children, I remember we'd watch it as we were mesmerized as like 4 and 5 years old because she would call out names, right? And oh wow, she can see me through the TV, and it was quite an enchanting thing. I always feel like there's Janice and Ardith, and yes, um, so welcome. So I just want to also introduce Emily's on the call today. So Emily's on our team, and Emily's going to be showing you a couple of things later on, but also just taking care of our chat box. So as we go through, will undoubtedly be a lot of questions. You can either just raise your hand and we'll find you, or you can put it in the chat box, and Ardith and Emily will bring that forward for us. So the purpose of these, oh, there's Pierre. Oh, good to see you.
Hi.
Greetings. The purpose of today is to talk about a new program we're starting just in a few weeks. On the 11th of September is a pilot for some practice groups that will become a really significant part of our narrative coaching offer. It's something we've wanted to do for a while, but we never quite had the right technology for that to make it work effectively. And about a year ago, I, through a mutual friend, got involved as an advisor in a startup that's created an extraordinary platform for us to practice. And so we now have the architecture in which we can host groups, and then allows us to kind of bring a lot of this into the space where we can help everyone become a better and more confident narrative coach. And I know that technology is not always easy for many of us. And I just want to share with you, and we'll share again later, that we'll have more orientation sessions on the platform. You can use the platform as little or as much as you need to, in terms of it has a lot to offer, but like many of our own apps that we use, we only use a fraction of what they offer, which is just fine. It allows us to get what we need from that. And so I'm just really excited to be able to share this with you and be able to offer these practice groups. So I'm just going to share a few sort of introductory pieces, how to set some context and see what kind of questions emerge for there. Emily's also going to show you the community space that we have with these groups, so you can meet others that are also involved in the program. So this is sort of an orientation of kind of where we're headed, and just going to give you some background and why we're doing this and what's important about it. And then we'll show you the platform and kind of walk through that, and then talk a bit about how you can have this for yourself. So why are we doing this? So as much as many of us love reading and listening to podcasts and taking classes, which are great and very nourishing, we know from our own experience in life and from all the research that the best way to get better at something is to do it. And to do that with consciousness and intentionality and sustenance. So we're going to create a sort of a self-directed space where you and a partner and you and a group can actually practice the things that are most important to you, and do so in a way that I think will be more effective than we often are when we try to do this by ourselves. We know that people, especially in the kind of crazy lives we live, benefit from safe spaces, benefit from invitations for deep reflection, and most importantly, in some ways, actually useful feedback. And again, we're going to encourage you to solicit the kinds of feedback that will be most valuable to you. as part of this too, even though we spend a lot of our time as coaches talking to people, sometimes it's easy to feel lonely, like we're out there on our own trying to do all this with our clients. And so we decided to do this as a group process as opposed to an individual process, to give you others to compare notes to and walk alongside you. And then lastly, it's just part of my ongoing quest to find new ways to advance coaching, because I feel like the world's asking more of us now than we often feel equipped for. And so this is another great way for you to identify, where do I need to be a stronger human? Where do I need to be a stronger coach? And how could this potentially help me? So the other sort of key sort of contextual piece, and I'll try to be very brief about this, but I just wanted to highlight one thing. And this comes from research that I'm doing for the Institute of Coaching now. You might think that a platform like this is focusing on coaching skills, which it is, but a lot in coaching is focused on competencies, actual behaviors. But those of you who've studied narrative coaching with me know that there's so much more to becoming a narrative coach than just the skills. And so we used this framework underneath to create some resources for you, the design of the actual program, so that you can actually develop yourself and discover more of who you are as you coach. There'll be pieces in this where you can focus on the coaching relationship, like what kind of relationships do you tend to form, as well as helping you look at your overall coaching process and how to understand how to get better at helping clients achieve the outcomes that they're looking for. So it's a long way of saying that there's a whole bunch here, but just that we're trying to put this all in a systemic frame, not just a competency frame, because we know that in order to change behavior, we often have to make adjustments in these other areas as well. And the paper from which this comes, we're going to post on the website soon. But for now, just know that we hold this really importantly to us, that we look at developing you as a whole human and giving you an opportunity to focus on growth in whatever form that means to you. And so you might say, hey, I feel like I really got these narrative coaching skills down, but I notice I don't always use them as confidently as I would like. So you don't need more practice with the skills. You might need looking at yourself in terms of what happens for you in those moments when you could use those skills and maybe don't. And maybe that's the place where work is going to be done. So basically what we're going to do is we offer 3 different levels of you having opportunities to practice using the platform. They're primarily designed for students and graduates of narrative coaching, although in our first session like this, we had a few people that came from friends who didn't know anything about narrative coaching, and so they were curious. So we'll see what we're going to do with them. But it's just a way for you to get support on things that matter for you, to get better at narrative coaching in ways that matter to you. So we're not prescribing you have to study these things or go practice these things. You will decide for yourself where you most want to practice. Okay. So before I go into that, are there any questions for you or any things that are coming up for you about what attracted you to come today, and what might be important for you in something like this that would help you at this stage of your journey, that I might want to know about to help me share what comes next in ways that's going to answer that question for you. So what interests you about all this? What is it that you would most like to have support for in your own practice right now? And again, you're welcome to just raise your hand or to put something in the chat box. Yeah, Ardith.
Let me unmute first.
That would be good.
Yeah, hi, David.
Hey, Ardith.
Yeah, so I've been narrative coaching is my first attraction, but what I do is women-centered transformational coaching, which actually has a process to it. And so I am working with my clients. I'm watching myself work at doing both at the same time.
Okay.
And I want to be more clear about honing how I do that with narrative coaching, because that is my primary methodology.
Uh-huh.
So,
And what is that you'd like to do more of?
yeah, hone how I apply narrative coaching to a transformational process that actually is a process.
Okay.
And so it's not just open-ended coaching, it's process-based as well. So
Okay.
I'm merging the two and
Okay.
figuring that out and how that looks for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then, so let me just say a couple things then, because one of the things we're going to encourage you all to do on the platform, coaches love to coach and they love to see things happen. So they get caught up in their coaching. But we know from whether it's piano or dance or cooking or sport, anything that we've gotten good at, a lot of it's just practicing skills and practicing moments in time. So a lot of this that we're trying to do here is based on what we observe musicians do, athletes do, people that have to perfect all the components of a craft and do so with great diligence. And so when in using the platform, it will be tempting to want to record entire sessions. That's not necessary. You can record brief sessions and get enough data to work on for a year of things that you notice about yourself. The second thing is that you have access to the platform and you can use your time however you want. So like for you, Ardith, you could say, here's 2 areas in my process that I teach that I think narrative coaching could help, but I'm not quite sure how. So you could actually hear yourself talk out loud as if you were talking to, in this case, you'll be talking to a colleague, but as if they were a prospective participant. And you can record yourself and then play it back. And how does that sound? And how did it come across the other person? And where are opportunities to bring more narrative coaching into that? So you could actually watch yourself and hear yourself move through that internal integration as you find language for what it is you want to do. And then, yeah.
That's good. Yeah, one of the fine points in that is to use narrative coaching and allow what is there to unfold as it's calling to unfold, and still following the transformational process. So
Yeah.
that's what I want to practice,
Okay.
is that allowance.
Yep. And if that's what you need, then that's what you should be doing.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
David, we do have a few things that have come up in the chat.
Great.
If you'd like me to
I would
relay
love that.
those. Okay, so Lisa has shared that she's not trained as a narrative coach, and likes this as a supportive frame for continued development alongside others.
Okay.
Mary shares that she is connecting with the feeling of having the skills, but not always being able to call on them in the broader coaching experience, including an expectation to step into more leadership.
Okay.
And Jeff has shared that he has been away from narrative coaching for a bit, but curious where your journey has gone and how he might rekindle a bit of what's going on in the NC world.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So let me just respond to you first, Lisa. So we hadn't really made a provision for non-narrative coaches, but we've had a lot of interest. So here you are. So I'm Emily and I are working on this, but yeah, so we just are really pleased with this opportunity, and we would like to be able to make this available. And so the majority of the people will be might use narrative coaching language, but that doesn't really matter for you. You can use the space. And so what I'm thinking about doing is just creating a little cheat sheet about the core principles of narrative coaching that we can make available to everybody, so that if somebody is sharing things with you as your partner in a practice, that you at least have some understanding what they're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
I found this on the web for things with your partner in a practice. Check it out.
No, thanks, Siri. That was for you, Jeff. This is why we don't like AI.
AI on demand.
Yeah, no, thank you. I have to I'm gonna have to go back and see. There's some word I say that unnamed app thinks means I'm talking to them, and it just volunteers things that I don't really want. Anyways, so yeah, so we'll work on Lisa, and I think that you would be fine here. So there's no quizzes, there's no tests, there's no tests of your narrative coaching knowledge.
No,
So-
but I am very curious. I know that I've seen you before, and part of
I
the
know.
reason I came was that was impressive in one way or another, but I didn't follow through with any of the training that you've done.
Okay.
And I think you've even come to Australia since the
I
time
have many times.
have you?
I
Okay.
lived
Well,
in
sorry I
Sydney.
missed all that good stuff,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, I'm here now. Who knows?
Here you
The
are.
universe has brought this to me right now.
Excellent. Well done.
Hmm.
Yeah, in terms of for Jeff's question, so one of the things that why I was attracted to this particular platform, I've been around technology for a long time. I had my first Mac 40 years ago. And I've done a lot of major change projects around technology, but I also have been around enough and differentiate between what actually adds value and what's smoke and mirrors, which is mostly the latter, often in technology. And what I liked about this particular startup is the two guys are very bright and very keen on what's possible here, but they're also very pragmatic, and their higher purpose is human communication. And so they don't get swept up in things that AI shouldn't do, can't really do. It's always there. It's always built in as a way to make the humans better and give you complete choice about what you choose. So there, you could use the entire platform and ignore every single piece of the AI that's involved, and it wouldn't diminish your experience. What the AI does for this is it provides, like, for example, a summary of the session, which is actually pretty darn accurate. It doesn't pick up some of the subtleties that we would as human coaches, but it's a nice starting point. It does things like counts words for you. So, for example, in one of our demos in the early part of the year, one of the participants used the same word 47 times in a 25 or 30-minute conversation, and the coach never said anything about that. So, but bang, right there's AI's going, you might want to pay attention to this, right? So it can be quite helpful, but it's just really there again as a tool, just like humans. Like when people give us advice or try to give us feedback we didn't ask for, you can ignore the AI just like you ignore those people that give you unwarranted feedback. And I think you'll find that some of it's quite fascinating as just another perspective on this. It's one of the things that my involvement is benefiting us all is they've taken my book, a lot of my videos, and a few other things, and they're creating what I'm calling a local language model. So you know that these things often draw on large language models. So they're building a local language model that will basically have the AI shift the feedback to be more in line with what would David say. Because I will be looking for different things than the average coach would be looking for. I will be giving different kinds of feedback. I will prioritize certain things that maybe other coaches, people like me would not. So we're trying to help this be as attuned to us as we can.
Will it use your voice, David?
Oh God, no, please not.
Oh, come on. Okay, just checking.
That would, if it starts becoming like the animatronics at Disneyland, I think I'm out of here, but that will come. It actually, that all exists right now. You could have that today if you wanted. You could have it, and the state of art of this is just stunning, but they're not interested in those kind of possibilities because that's entertaining for a TikTok fan, but it doesn't really add any value. And so we're trying to use the technology in a way that, like for me now, and you'll see this in a few minutes, when the platform will give you a video recording and a transcript of the same conversation. They're both time-stamped and synced. So like I don't like watching videos that way. I like watching transcripts because I can scan them faster. I can scan, it will mark out key moments with some variables that we've identified. And I can add more, the client can add more, but I can scan a transcript now in a very brief period of time and get 90% of the key points in the conversation in a fraction of the time, as opposed to watching an entire video. The other thing that I really admired about them, and we all know this now, is all this sort of touting of like Otter and these people that transcribed our text or videos into transcripts. And most of it's, in my opinion, still not very good. So the two guys were quite clever, and they said, we know that people are going to want and need those transcripts to be really good. And so they've come up with a very unique way of creating these transcripts that are more accurate by far than anything I've ever seen from anybody else on the planet. So again, we know that, because oftentimes, especially in narrative coaching, the coaching comes down to key words. And so you want the words to be right, so you can really access them. And so it makes that available. Anything else, Emily, for now?
I did see that Adele shared something
Okay.
in here that was beautiful, and it says, while I hear the opportunity for more than skill development, I am interested in revisiting the tools in
Mhm.
community in the context of who I am and where I am now 3 years later.
Okay. Great. And so one of the maybe 2 or 3 months ago, I was in Brisbane in Australia as part of that tour, and where Brian lives, and we spent a half day at his house. I gave him a crash course on integrative development, and he loved it. And so they're now building an ID lens or umbrella over the whole platform, in the sense that what they're moving towards is you can identify things you want to work on. You could record yourself, practice the thing you worked on. You can get feedback about that. And then it might call out for you, here's 3 moments in the conversation where you had opportunities to practice that. And it will actually bracket those out, actually pull them up into a separate screen. So you can go, oh, I didn't do what I said I was going to do there. I did my old habit. And we'll give you a chance to record that again and practice in a little small loop the very thing that you've said you most wanted to practice. And then where it's going, which is not there yet, which is why we're going to be providing some more of the tools, is that between human observers and the AI observer, we notice that you're still not pausing as long as you said you wanted to. Here's 3 resources you could access that would help you learn more about how to pause. So we're trying to create this whole sort of closed system where you can identify what you want to work on, practice what you want to work on, get feedback what you worked on, and get support to get better, all in the same space. And to Jeff, I saw Jeff's question flash across the screen there about the nonverbal. So again, part of my value in the provider is they don't chase anything that AI promises that they can't observe themselves. So, for example, the current state of capacity to read facial expressions and is just not anywhere near what they think it is. And we've seen some epic failures watching demos of this at conferences. It's just too subtle. It will come maybe in time, but it's not that interesting. And that's really what humans can be often better at. So a lot of it is we're not looking for the AI to replace any of what you do. We're looking at it to augment what you don't need to do, that something else could do better than you, and free up to more things, but more just to add another lens on kind of what's happening. But it's, again, it's limited by what's available to it, and it's limited by its capacity. So if we just take it for what it is, and again, I just appreciate the integrity of Brian and Alex to just keep the bandwidth of what they offer in the AI space, things that are actually useful for people right now, rather than in terms of trying to have lots of bells and whistles. Okay, is that enough on the platform for right now? Because we just sort of walk through how this looks. And if more things come up, feel free to just ask. I went back here again. Okay, so we have sort of 3 different levels you can be involved in, depending on what your level of interest and capacity. This is sort of the most basic level, and it's part of the other 2 as well, but gives you a chance to, we'll have an orientation session a couple of times. You can come and get all, up to speed on how to use the platform. I'm going to show you the platform in just a few minutes. You can access the platform. We're going to put you in some groups by time zone. And then you can pair up to actually practice. My encouragement always is, if possible, to practice with the same person. Otherwise, you spend a lot of your time getting to know each other. This way you can kind of build on what you've discovered so far. And then all the things that you're going to need to understand and work with your session will be available to you. There'll be a forum, and in a little bit, Emily will sort of show you that. We have an online forum that just for this program, where you can meet other narrative coaches, share your reflections, your questions, etc. And then we've got a bunch of resources for you as well. And then if you want more, there's all of you will have, there's a video that's up now for the people that have registered already for the program about these, what's called small intentional practices. So everyone will have access to that video. And for the people at this level, we're also going to offer you more of a workshop on to go deeper on how to create them for yourself. And basically, this is building on the research on deliberate practice. Those of you who have studied with me will know that part of why we don't set goals is I'm much more interested in sort of micro practices and micro shifts and movements that you can practice way more often than around a singular goal. And so we're going to help you, like, say, for example, you realize, hey, I get so excited coaching that I just jump right in and I don't wait, or I don't pause long enough. Well, we're going to help you like look at that, like play it in slow motion and identify what are the components of pausing. Which ones do you do okay and where do you not do okay? So maybe like your breath becomes something that runs away from you and then it gets you caught up. So we're going to show you some strategies around how to build intentional practices to help you focus on your breathing, to build up the skills you need to actually pause. You're going to have a mentor for your small group, and you'll be able to meet with them a couple hours every month that you're in the program. The program runs by quarter. It's a subscription model, so you can stay in for as many quarters as you like. And when you want a break, you can just do so. Yeah, and so this is really great. We've got already 4 mentors lined up. And so as soon as the registration closes, then we'll divide people up by time zones and assign you to a mentor who will reach out and help you kind of meet up. And then for those who want more, we're also going to have another level, which includes those first 2, but also gives you more time with me to go deeper on the things you're working on for yourself and have an opportunity to do that, as well as get some resources that we create based on what people ask for. So it can really target what it is that you're most interested in doing. Okay. So this is how it all works. So again, we're going to have some orientation sessions. As you'll see in a minute when we show you the platform, there's a lot there. And actually the mechanics of operating it are actually fairly simple. It just seems like a lot in the beginning, but we want to make sure everybody's comfortable in the orientation. We will register all of the people that sign up in Ovida. We pay Ovida a small fee for each of us, our participants, but we take care of that as part of what you pay us. And we'll take care of all the mechanics of getting you in their system. And then you'll receive from them instructions about what you need to do to kind of complete that process and get going. And they will handle all the customer service around the technology, and we'll handle all the customer service about the program. We'll divide everybody into groups, and then we're going to give you some resources, including one on how to give feedback and how to receive feedback. So I think that'll be an important part, so you can help each other get the most from the experience. The other half of that then is that you will choose it from your practice group. You'll choose a coaching partner to do the practices with. You then can, with your partner, and again, if you feel a need or a desire, you can always change partners from within your practice group. But you're responsible then for organizing the time. You'll schedule the practice session right in the Ovida platform, and then we're going to encourage you to use the platform and what's there when you have a meeting with your partner to debrief what you've done. And then we're going to encourage you to be part of our forum, our community that way, because it'd be a great way to compare notes with everybody else. If you're in the second level, then we're going to, again, offer a workshop for you on small intentional practices, helping you be more and more skilled at creating these for yourself so you can do them on your own time. And then you'll be able to join up with your practice group and your mentor at the end of every month to kind of review what you've done and go deeper on your feedback and kind of what you're noticing. And maybe there's part of this you're stuck on, like I can't get past this one habit I have. And so the part of the mentor's role and the group's role is to kind of support you on that. And then this, the last piece, we'll schedule some time for you to meet with me every month while you're in the program. And we'll kind of work together around how we determine the agendas for that. So we make sure that we touch on what's important to you. If that group gets too big, we'll just meet more than once so that everybody has enough time in those 2 hours to address what's most important for them. Okay, so I'm going to just in a second. So we're going to give you a tour of the platform in a little bit, in a few minutes here, but and then you'll see an actual live set, recorded session that Kathy, who's on this call, and I did a few days back, and then Emily will show you what the practice group space looks like. So Kathy, before we Emily, before we launch into the technology of all this, maybe we can just sort of leapfrog this a bit. And if you wouldn't mind, I'll stop sharing. If you could just show them the practice group space.
Happy to.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
And I'll keep track of the chat box while you're doing that.
Okay, so just confirming that you see a space that says Narrative Coach Practice Groups Orientation. Okay, thank you so much. So what we are looking at here is what we call the Moment Institute Learning Community. This is where all of our programs and community-based offers take place. So our current cohorts of narrative coaching and integrative development all go through their curriculum and their program within this space. So what we've done here is to also build out a section that is going to be completely dedicated to the narrative coach practice groups. So within this space, there are several different areas with a specific function. So as you come in, we've gone ahead and put some resources up here to help orient you to the space and each other, and kind of create some scaffolding for what will happen with your practice sessions. There is a forum space here. So this functions like a regular old forum where you can post comments and ask questions and reflections here in this space, interact asynchronously with each other. We also have a place where we will be curating resources for you, and also you can contribute to this resource space as well. If you are part of the level 2 and the level 3 group, this is where the information around the small intentional practices, that workshop, and then ultimately what you all create together will be housed, and you can come in here to utilize these resources, interact with them, reflect on them, comment on them, all within this space. And here is where there's going to be a space that's dedicated to those who are in the level 3, which includes the mastermind sessions with David. Something else I would just like to point out, if all of you here haven't joined just yet, we do have a free space that is just open to anybody who wants to be part of the wider Moment Institute community. So, we have several hundred people who are interacting in this space, who are sharing reflections, sharing notes. We are posting different kinds of free events here every month, along with the recordings. We have a nice little thread where folks are sharing anecdotes and images from transformative trips that they've taken. And it's just a nice way to stay in touch with, like-minded practitioners, friends, and the community that we've all made over these years. So if you haven't joined this yet, certainly this is available to you at no cost to join and continue to be in conversation. And then when you are working on, say, something more specific like narrative coaching or integrative development, but in this case, the narrative coaching practice groups, we create a dedicated space for those conversations for all of you who are going through that experience together.
Thanks, Emily.
You're welcome.
So here's what I'm thinking before we launch into the demo. I'm just thinking that we've been talking for a while, so I'm going to just give you a rest from my voice. And not that I don't like my voice, but it's like having too much chocolate after a while. So here's what I'd like you to do. I'm going to, so Emily, if we could put them into pairs for, let's just say, 8 minutes. And what I'd like you to do in your 8 minutes, I'd like you to share with your partner, what is one thing that would be meaningful for you if you had a magic wand and could improve anything about your coaching? What would it be? Or about your practice? Just pick one thing. Doesn't have to be the top of your list, but just one thing that comes to mind that feels important to you right now. Just share that, what that is. And I want to have you both to hear another voice and kind of maybe have a more intimate conversation, but then also to have that front of mind as we watch the tour of the platform, just so you could see like how that might help you to work on the thing that you've identified. Okay? You're on mute, Emily.
Just based on the numbers that we have here tonight, we are going to have some groups of 3 and
Okay.
some of 2. So I'm going to go ahead and open those rooms.
All right, enjoy. All right. And that way the conversation with Colette can be private to us and no one will ever know.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well timed, Emily. Well done.
Yes.
Adele.
With regards to the privacy piece of it, it would, if you're coaching someone around, like, we're probably just bringing general topics and coaching, but if you're coaching somebody around something that has to do with intellectual property or revealing, you just happened to say it was in Great Britain, kind of their standards. I'm watching The Crown, and the Camilla and Charles conversation was just recorded in the context of that. Anyway, all these things are firing at the same time. I'm like, I worry about that. Is that a worry to be had?
No, at this point in time, I don't think so at all. Just because the way that, there's no promises in life, but I feel because they know about the nature of communication and coaching in particular, they've invested enormous amounts in this. And because so like, for example, the 2 primary uses for it right now are like this, with training programs, not actual coaching of clients. The places where this is used with clients, and so some of these would be like the types of clients, Kathy, that you work with. So you would recognize some of the names now on their client list. I'm sure you've worked there for them. They're used on internal servers in the company. They don't go out onto the internet, out in the cloud. And so I'm not worried about that, actually. And for our purposes here, these are practices. So you might end up discovering things or sharing things that maybe are sensitive for you, but there's not like company secrets or whatever that are being leaked out.
Oh, and so what you're saying is there actually, this doesn't go, you might have said that before, that it doesn't go to the wider.
No, it doesn't go anywhere.
Oh, okay.
No, it doesn't go anywhere but on this platform.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. All good. Can we any more questions? Let me just
I do have one quick question. I had to step away for a minute, David,
that's
but
okay.
is, did I hear you correctly in saying that it's a unique AI platform in that it's not sourced in the broader world universe of information and it's selective input for the AI?
Yes. So
Okay.
it doesn't create like I'll give you I thought it was, this goes back, this will make Colette's point. There's someone built a Mac version of a ChatGPT. I'll give it a try. I'm a Mac user. And so I said, I have a dilemma. How would David Drake coach me on this? It sent back complete rubbish. And then I said, no, how would David Drake do this? There is no David Drake that we found in coaching. So I said, okay, note to self, this is crap. And then I tried another platform and it sent me back this gobbledygook, like 4 paragraphs that could be about any coach. And so they're not interested, because this is again, for a lot of the bigger coach, like university-based coaching schools are using this now. Some companies are starting to use it, schools like ours. And so they don't want to know what the average coach, they're not sourcing this in terms of giving you feedback based on what coaches should do or what good coaching is. They're giving you feedback on what you actually said. And so they're tracking, they track the larger world in the sense of, like, for example, there's you'll see in a minute, there's metrics around 6 core variables, and it's stayed at 6 because that's all they can really rely on. And it will track you over time. Like, say you discover that in your first practice that your share of voice is 40%. So then if I was your mentor, I'd say, well, it's really interesting. What's happening for here that you're talking 40% of the time? And so you process that a bit, you work out some agreements, and then you do some more practices. We'll track, did your share of voice go down? It's not saying you must be a lousy coach. It's not saying, well, good coaches do this. It's just saying, we observe you talking 32% of the time. So it's only really tracking things it can track. And then it's giving you feedback on these variables, but using your own language. And then they're piloting right now. They're at ICF Converge, but they use the ICF competencies to do a test run of this. How would the ICF competencies look at a conversation? And then I'm next, so I'll be the first provider that they're going to try out to create a customized, even more local language piece. So, Georgiana.
Yes, David, what's having me soothe towards realizing that AI can be incorporated in coaching is when you opened up and you said their higher purpose is human communication.
Yes.
So I'm thinking if there's that intention, then there's an integrity around the AI. So that's soothing me a bit. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, when I lived back in California, I coached a lot of Silicon Valley, and I saw the good, the bad, and the ugly of technology companies, and they get so easily enamored with their technology and often don't take accountability for unintended consequences and all kinds of other things. And so I like it. You know, these guys are excited. They're on something big. They've gotten some good sponsors now, but it came back to they started this because they both benefited enormously from coaching at critical points in their life, and they have a deep passion around human communication. And so, and then it just happened that coaching was a logical first audience for them. They're now are using it with leadership programs, and a couple other things, but it's ultimately around humans talking to each other. All right. So let me just I'm screen sharing. Good. So the ever so wonderful Kathy, who's on this call. So when you are registered, you'll end up with a screen like this, which will show you meetings that are upcoming for you that you've planned with your partner. There's some larger sort of pieces on the left there. They're just based like you would for any kind of app. They're just basic categories of things. They've got, I will say over here, they've got a getting started, because we've learned a lot of people sometimes struggle with technology. So it lets you kind of walk through the whole thing and see if you've got any issues before you go into recording yourself. They have, I'll go back here to home, but they have, I think, the first useful frequently asked questions section I've ever seen on a website. I find most of them completely rubbish. They never have an answer to my question, which I always find are basic, obvious questions. Why is no one thinking about this? There's always the obscure stuff that no one needs. Theirs actually works because I pushed on them around the user experience, and I just started feeding to them, here's what the people that are not getting in or are struggling or frustrated, this is what they're struggling with. But because there's such obvious things to the builders of this, they don't even think to answer those questions. So they actually have a really useful section. If you get lost or something's not working, you actually will find a lot of your answers there. So we're just going to go in here, and this will show you. So then there's two very attractive people. We were laughing in the first demonstration session a couple of days ago. I would pay a fortune for somebody to create an app that prohibits systems like this from capturing faces that are not attractive. Why can't we just some kind of Instagram filter? So it just captures you when you're like look intelligent, or like Kathy looks fine. It's more like, what was I thinking? Why were they looking like that? But alas, it does not. So this is what you end up seeing. This is a recording that I did with Kathy on the platform. Again, going back to Colette's, here's the AI summary, which actually I thought was pretty accurate. It didn't capture some of the nuances or the emotional components, but that's okay. It just, here's the basic concepts of what was there. On the right is the transcript of the conversation, and you can go down here. I'll show you. So right here, we've got some key things that because Kathy and I hadn't talked to each other in a while, the first 2 minutes were just us catching up. So it's recognizing this is where the AI is really helpful. So this is where the actual conversation started. And then this is a key moment. So the system identified that this was a key moment in the conversation based on things like change of energy, change of voice, tonality, or whatever. They've got like about 5 or 6 different variables they look. And again, it's about as accurate as a human coach would be at sort of assessing that. So maybe 70, 80% of the time, it's something, yeah, I think that's key. Sometimes it's not, and that's just fine. But I can scan this for things that are already marked out and start there in my thinking about where do I want to pay attention to giving feedback. And then it's got, because I've done this before, it's got all these different sections. So it's got, here's if you're trying to helping a client create action steps, here's 6 commitments that Kathy made to me. Now, if I were debriefing this with Kathy, I might ask her, are these correct? Are there others that it's left out? But now, how great, we've already got a place to start. And then it's got a place for Kathy to take some notes to herself, a place for me to provide feedback. This is a brilliant one. So you'll see it measures not only the dots, the turquoise are key moments. I can just flick through those in a couple of minutes and sort of figure out where I want to start. But the white and green is differentiating between when Kathy was talking and when I was talking. You'll see it's kind of higher in the beginning because we were just chatting, and it's higher at the end because we were also chatting again. But it will show you these in numbers as well. So these are the 6 variables. They're the 6 they've had since the very beginning. because I don't want to overwhelm people with data. Again, that was one of my, kept having to rein them back in. Yes, you could do that. It's already too much. But these are 6 places to kind of get a quick snapshot. Okay, so I talk 38% of the time. Again, why? Because I know Kathy and we had more of a conversation, and Kathy's but it's if that was an actual of everything, because there was like 4 minutes of non-coaching, which was where a lot of my talking came in. But if that was my actual rate for an entire actual coaching session, I think, well, that's probably too high. If we'd had a couple of these sessions, you'd see I could go to a menu that would show me each of these 6, how they've changed over time. And then also it's got a window and saying most of the more masterful coaches tend to fall in this range. So if one of your scores is consistently outside of the best practice range, it will show you that. So now you know, okay, so, I can now have that reflective back to me so I can know one of the things I might work on. And then you can just kind of look at this in a way that just gives you that kind of quick snapshot. But like if here, like, so I go down here and let's pick one, like in here. Okay, there's a lot of things happening here. Some key moments all right in a row. So I might say, and then I might be that and you can see our initials, like hopefully on the screen. So you got me for David and C for Kathy. You might say that we have key moments, and all of a sudden you see a whole bunch of circles with D's on them. I just started talking as the coach. Okay, so then if I was the mentor for me, I might go back to this one. And it will go to the exact spot on the video. Now this is Kathy's turn to look funny. All right. She's deep in thought about to say something really important. And so my mentor might say, so David, so what was happening right here with Kathy that prompted you to say so much in response as opposed to letting her dive into these key moments? I'm like, I might say just hypothetically, she seemed really emotional, and I think I just kind of backed off a bit. But now, so you've got actual visual data around what was happening when certain things occurred in this session. And this is where we won't go into it now, it's too much, but there's a capacity in this actually where if I felt I did that with Kathy, I could go in and say, so what would you have preferred to do? Or what would you have liked to have done instead? I would have liked to have shut up and just ask Kathy some more questions. So you can actually start to have a time out of time to actually work with more micro moments. And so when you come to actually be together in the debrief, you're both able to take notes as you're going in here, not on your notepad or on your phone or on the wall or whatever. It's actually in here so that you can actually then go back when you're all done and review the notes. And now it's right there tied to the video and the transcript from which it came. Okay. And so over time, you'll end up with a series, and through these practice groups, you'll go through a series of conversations together. My encouragement for you when you do that is to focus on a few things and go deeply into them so you can change the pattern. Rather than trying to cover off 27 narrative coaching skills. And this will be able to track you over time. Are you getting better at the thing you said you wanted to get better at? And if you're not, then you're either yourself, your partner, and or your mentor, if you're in that group, can actually give you some feedback and say, okay, what's that about? And how do we address this rut you keep getting in, where you go back to doing this habit X that you've been trying to change? But I find for me, you can go as deep into this as you want. You can use the video space in whatever way that you want. And so like maybe you don't do well with people that have strong emotions. Well, if I were your coaching partner, I would get in here and practice with you. I'm going to emote, and I want you to practice being with me emoting. And I want you to notice what's happening for you. And the beauty of this, it's a contained space with just the two of you, unless you invited an observer to review it later. No one else is ever going to see this besides the two of you. And so you can just practice and experiment with how do I want to be with this differently. So I'm going to stop there. And what I'd like to do is I'll leave the screen up in case we need it again. But Kathy, I'm going to ask you if you would like to share anything about your experience of this.
Having trouble unmuting.
all good.
I love seeing the platform, David. That to me is getting me all excited as a coach, just to go back, not only as being able to capture the moments, because it was a profoundly helpful conversation, which I appreciate. And I, I don't have a memory of those moments. Seeing it in this way as you're showing it now is really exciting to me, because I can go back and explore a little deeper on some of the things that we were talking about.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Yeah, and what oftentimes when we're caught up in coaching, it's so easy to get distracted by, oh, I've got to remember that, or I need to ask her that later, or what did they say again? And that this is where, going back to your piece, Colette, I feel like the AI's got my back. It's recording this for me. It's creating a transcript for me. It's creating a summary for me. It doesn't mean I can just rely on it and not pay attention. It means that if I don't remember something, or if I want to go deeper later, I don't have to track it myself. I know I'll be prompted to see it again. And then, oh yeah. So I find it just really helps us do what we do best as human coaches, and kind of backs us up with some of the mechanics of coaching, which sometimes can be distracting to us. Yeah. All right. So other questions, other things that are coming up for you about how this might work for you? Elaine.
Thanks, David. I'm just curious about, you mentioned it creates the transcript and
Yes.
we can use that for the mentoring for this. Can we also use it if, for example, personally, I'm going from MCC with ICF at the moment. So can we transport that for things like that as well, for other mentoring opportunities, or for if we're sending it off for MCC credentialing?
As far as I know right now, you can't export the video. I believe you can export, or at least manually, the chat box, or the transcript. But what I'll do is I will ask. I'm actually flying out tonight to Orlando. I'll see Brian tomorrow, and I'll ask just to confirm that, and if so, kind of what that takes. I know that, again, part of the, if nothing else, I know in a rudimentary way, you could take a series of screenshots of the transcript, even if you can't download the actual text itself. But if there's there's a section that it was really significant for you in your practice, either as a recipient or as the coach, you can just take a screenshot with your camera, with your keyboard, and then just work with that later. So that's always available. And so I'm not part of the ICF system, so I don't know what they count as, valid data, but I would think at least you can do that. But I will ask Brian, and I'll post an answer in the Circle community for this to the question.
Fantastic. That it just saves double work. So if you're doing this already, then it would be smarter rather than harder. So thank you.
You're most welcome. And that's part of the aim of this, is to use the technology to take off our back some of the things we don't really don't need to spend precious time on.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Wow. So Lisa, could you put, Emily, could you put answer to Lisa's question in, never mind. Emily's like, wow, she answered the question without doing anything. That's amazing. I'm really impressed.
Sorry.
Yes, and Brian and Alex are the two co-founders of Ovida.
Are they demoing it at ICF Converge?
They are.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it meant to be used for capturing coaching sessions with clients as well?
Like I said, it's most of the uses thus far are either internal to organizations or internal to coaching programs for the development of coaches. to open up the can of worms of coaching clients is really a nightmare. They've looked at that and so far they've avoided it because the technology and the confidentiality and everything would be almost impossible to manage. It would be cost in, but they are in some conversations. Like I know there's one of the big financial services companies they've been in conversation with for a year, and they're really struggling about how do we measure how well our external coaches are actually doing. And they've been burned by all kinds of things, and like, how do we actually know when we don't have access to the data because these are all confidential private conversations? So they are looking at that, looking at it, for example, as a way to vet coaches. They can actually do demos on Ovida, and then as part of the requirement to be hired as an external coach. They have the same problem with their internal coaches, but then they can manage them a bit easier because then they can't record them coaching actual internal employee conversations because that's a breach of confidentiality, but they can do demos of coaches coaching each other as part of their internal team, or they can maybe find a few volunteers from within the company itself to do this, but that's a very closed loop specified scenario. But for any of us in private practice, opening this up to all of our external clients would just be a no-go. No, I don't think of a single client who would say yes to that. No. But as you think about, what you were talking about in your breakout rooms, do you see how this might be helpful for you and the things you want to work on for yourself? And what do you notice about that?
David, I'll say something. I thought it was really interesting that you managed to do 83% open-ended questions, because that is not easy to do. And as someone who looks at that and practices that, I don't think I would be as able to make that as fluid as I was not aware of you doing it while you were doing it.
Yeah.
But I think what a wonderful thing to be able to measure in yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just really helpful. And for me, I look at it like a wonderful mirror, because it's going back to Colette's concerns. So the AI doesn't have any judgments about you. It just says 83% of your questions were open-ended. It says your share of voice was, what was it, 38%? It doesn't say that's good or bad. Now we can say that because we know what good coaching is. But even then, if I were your mentor or your peer, I might say, what was happening today? Like today's session, the rate was higher than usual. And I think, and then you might reflect, oh yeah, I had a really horrible morning and I was in a bad mood and I didn't center myself enough and I was ungrounded when I was coaching, or this kind of person really triggers me and I just was off my game, and maybe they're really arrogant or something. I was put off by them, so I stopped paying attention, and all the human foibles we all have. We're dealing with other human beings. So it doesn't make any assessment about good or bad. It says this is what is, right? So it's a brilliant, in our narrative coaching terms, it's a brilliant situate tool. It just says this is what is. And it will try to summarize a few things and catalog a few things, but it never itself, the AI has nothing to do with any assessment of whether what you've done is good or bad. It just tells you, reflects back what it's observed. Yeah. So we have about 10 more minutes. It's much more mechanical. Okay, good. I'm hoping mechanical is a good thing, Colette. Other thoughts? Any other questions before we go that would be important to you? Go back and do this. We don't need that screen. We need another screen. Let's try this again. Oh, Adele.
and you probably said this, so apologies if this is repeating, but did you give, it can only do what it can do, like what it's been kind of told to do, or did you do the rules for this? Like the things that it's tracking, did you identify what those things are that are being tracked?
I personally did not, but Alex and Brian and their tech person did. Based on their research, again, they set a threshold in the high mid-90s of a percentage of accuracy of how accurate was an AI in tracking this. And there's many things that fall well below that threshold that they, even though people tout it as a value or virtue of AI, it's not good enough. And so again, there are factors that we personally, or we as narrative coaches, might think make something a key moment that the AI, as of this point, is not trained to do. It's more things that are universally common indicators of things to notice. In time, if their local language modeling of me is if that pilot goes well, then there's aspects of coaching that are somewhat unique in narrative coaching that it will build in terms of things it tracks and measures. But that's a ways off now. We're not there yet. It's only things that are reliably measurable and observable with the technology where it's at. And I think, I've been really trying to be adamant with them that there will be times when technology does get to a place with certain things that it can do, but I don't want to ever be in a place where the technology cripples our capacity to develop ourselves. To be like, if you were to ask most children or young people which way is west, I would predict, I'd make a sizable bet that a smaller percentage of them could answer that question today than 30 years ago. Why? Because no one uses a compass or a map, right? They just use GPS and they follow the instructions where Mr. Google tells them to go. And I was really even in teaching my daughter how to drive. I said, for Christ's sakes, look at the sun. If nothing else, oh yeah, that's right. And I said, which way is left and which way is north? I don't know. I said, oh God. So like 100,000 years or 200,000 years of human history now is down the drain because of GPS. So it's really important for me to keep advocating for a wise and ethical use of AI. I've done actually talks on this now that do ways to augment us, but not cripple us, not diminish us. It doesn't do any use if it helps, if in terms of helping students write draft papers, if their critical skills and thinking skills go down, or if you've ever published anything, that part of the thrill of it is the search. Who else has written about that? What do they think? All the things you stumble upon, you would never have thought in a million years to look for. Things from other fields, other ideas, a thing in the movie, and all this kind of random things that form thought and form ideas and form human connections. And so again, my invitation, if you're enamored or less than enamored of technology, don't let this sway you either way. Just if this is going to be valuable for you to be able to make it a safe space to practice and get feedback, then great. And if the AI part is daunting or it's not interesting to you, then ignore it. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's there to help, but if it doesn't help you, then let it go. Yeah. And so again, this is sort of, we've got this set up again for 3 months through the end of the year. It starts September 11th. And then in January, we'll launch it again. We might end up tweaking some of this based on what we learned from you all, but I still got the old one. And if you end up with any questions, we'll always be here to support your participation in the program. And when you join, you'll get access to their customer service team at Ovida if you run into login questions or all the usual suspects of things that can go wrong with technology. But what I've been with them since pretty much day one, not day one, but since the real beginning. And it's astounding to see how far they've come in the last year and a half. So I'm really excited where this is all going. But all right. So Emily, could you put the link to the page in the chat box?
It is in there.
Excellent. Well done. And so if you want to sign up, that's where you need to go. Or if you have further questions, just let us know. Okay. All good. Take this off now. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it very much. If you need more, just let us know. And I hope some of you will come and join us. All right.
Thank you, David.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.